I don't think I've ever enjoyed a party this much in my entire life. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the casual conversations that masked the tangled web of deceit hanging over the room. It was all just chef's kiss perfect. But the real showstopper? That was coming soon. Stephen, my wife Clara's not-so-secret lover, was in his element. He was the kind of guy who loved to be the center of attention, all charisma and faux confidence, parading around like he owned the place. He'd throw an arm around me every now and then, slap my back a little too hard, and chuckle at his own jokes, most of which were thinly veiled jabs at me. The crowd lapped it up. Man, Ben, I gotta say, you're one hell of a husband. I mean, letting Clara have it all while you focus on work? That's a level of generosity I could never achieve. He grinned, eyes flickering towards Clara, who was laughing in that nervous, forced way people do when they know the ground beneath them is starting to crack. Oh, it was starting, all right. I sipped my drink, letting him bask in his little moment. The whole room was watching. Friends, co-workers, even Clara's family. Everyone but me was still in the dark. They thought I was the same old Ben. Mild-mannered, a little dull, perfectly oblivious to the months of betrayal happening right under my nose. They had no idea that I had been watching. Generosity is important, Steve, I said, swirling my whiskey. But you know what's even better? I leaned in slightly, my voice just loud enough for the surrounding crowd to hear. Reciprocation. He blinked. What? I smirked and clinked my glass against his before turning to Clara. Speaking of, sweetheart, I have a little something for you. A gift, actually. Something personal. Her smile faltered. She knew me too well. The crowd murmured as I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, beautifully wrapped box. The kind of box that might hold a watch or a bracelet. Something sentimental. Oh, Ben, you shouldn't have, Clara said, but her voice was tight. I handed her the box, watching her fingers tremble as she untied the ribbon. She knew. She felt it. That prickling sense of impending doom. And Stephen? He was still standing there, grinning like an idiot, completely unaware that in a matter of minutes, his entire life was about to collapse. I raised my glass and smiled. Open it, love. You're gonna adore what's inside. Clara hesitated, just for a second. But in that second, I saw the war happening behind her eyes. The calculations, the frantic attempts to piece together what I knew, how much I had figured out, and whether this was the moment it all came crashing down. She swallowed hard and forced a smile. Ben, really, you didn't have to. Oh, but I did. I cut in, my voice smooth, almost gentle. I wanted to. For you. For us. The room had gone quiet now. People were watching, sensing the tension, the undercurrent of something just beneath the surface. Even Stephen was paying attention now, though the idiot still had that smug, cocky grin plastered across his face. Clara pulled at the ribbon, letting it fall to the floor. Her fingers moved carefully over the box's lid before finally lifting it open. And then she froze. I watched the blood drain from her face, watched her throat tighten as she swallowed back the panic that had just slammed into her chest like a freight train. The silence stretched. Stephen, ever the clueless moron, laughed and leaned over to peek inside. What? Did he get you another? Then he saw it. The color in his face shifted from cocky amusement to something much more interesting. A sickly, pale shade of realization. Clara's fingers gripped the edges of the box like she wanted to crush it, like maybe if she held it tight enough, she could somehow make the contents disappear. But they wouldn't. Not the sleek black USB drive nestled inside. Not the tiny, folded piece of paper resting beside it, with just 3 simple words written in my handwriting. Press play, darling. The silence was deafening. Clara's breath hitched. Stephen's jaw clenched. The room had stopped breathing. I leaned back against the bar, sipping my drink. Go ahead, I murmured, voice laced with something close to amusement. You've always loved surprises. Her eyes snapped up to mine. There was something almost pleading in them now, as if, even in this moment, she thought she could talk her way out of whatever was about to happen. Stephen, though, he wasn't that naive. His hands had curled into fists, his breathing shallow. I took another slow sip, savoring the taste. Oh, this was going to be so much fun. Clara's hand trembled as she picked up the USB drive. She didn't move to plug it in. Didn't even breathe. Just sat there, gripping it like it was a live grenade, which, let's be honest, it was. Stephen, on the other hand, was faster on the uptake. His eyes darted to me, then back to Clara, and I could practically hear the gears in his head grinding, trying to figure out just how screwed he was. He took a step closer to her and whispered, "Don't. Not here." Too late. Someone from the crowd, maybe one of Clara's friends, let out a nervous laugh. "Come on, you've got us all curious now. What is it?" Clara shot up from her seat, clutching the box to her chest like it held her last shred of dignity. It's nothing. Just a joke, right, Ben?" Her voice was high, thin, barely holding together. I tilted my head. "A joke? If you think so, babe." She licked her lips, eyes scanning the room, looking for an out. But there wasn't one. Not tonight. Then someone, bless their nosy little soul, grabbed the note from the box and read it aloud. "Press play, darling." A murmur spread through the room. I could see the curiosity turning into anticipation. The kind of buzz that happens right before something truly spectacular goes down. Stephen, clearly sensing the walls closing in, leaned into Clara's ear, hissing something meant for only her to hear. But I caught it anyway. "We leave. Now." She shook her head, barely perceptible. She knew that would only make it worse. If they bolted, it would be admitting everything. Stephen clenched his jaw. I could see his breathing change. Oh, he was sweating now. I set my drink down, clapping my hands once. "Well, looks like you're not going to play it, so I guess I'll do the honors." Then I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and connected to the speakers. A few people gasped. Stephen actually took a step forward, hand outstretched, as if he could physically stop what was about to happen. But he couldn't. The speakers crackled. Then came the sound of a door clicking shut. Then footsteps. Then Clara's voice. "God, Stephen, he has no idea. I could tell him I'm working late, and he'd probably send me flowers for being such a hard-working wife." The room erupted. The moment Clara's voice filled the room, every last trace of background chatter died. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the murmurs of polite conversation, gone. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating, as the recording continued playing over the speakers. "You're sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Stephen's voice, smug, cocky, the same tone he'd been using all night to joke at my expense. "Please," Clara scoffed. "Ben's as clueless as they come. He actually thinks I'm swamped with work. Meanwhile, I'm getting my real stress relief right here." Laughter. Their laughter. A sharp inhale from someone in the crowd. A muffled "Jesus Christ" from Clara's sister. Someone's drink hit the floor with a dull clunk. I let it keep playing. And the best part? Clara's voice was lower now, teasing. "Even if he did find out, he wouldn't do anything. He's just Ben. You know?" Stephen chuckled. "Yeah. I almost feel bad for the guy. Almost." The rage in Stephen's eyes now? Oh, it was beautiful. But it wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at Clara. Because this was no longer just my revenge. This was his downfall, too. I watched as realization sank into his thick skull. This wasn't just a betrayal expose. This was a career-ruining, relationship-ending, reputation-shattering disaster unfolding in real time. His voice in that recording. It wasn't just sleazy pillow talk. It was proof. Proof that he, the self-important executive standing in this room full of colleagues, bosses, and friends, had been screwing a married woman behind her husband's back and laughing about it. Proof that he was the punchline in a joke that had just backfired. The panic set in fast. Stephen lunged for my phone, but I was expecting that. I stepped back, raising it just out of reach, tilting my head with a lazy grin. "Easy there, buddy. You wouldn't want to make a scene." His hands curled into fists. "You son of a..." Clara grabbed his arm. "Stephen, stop." Oh, and now she wanted to play damage control? Adorable. I held up a finger. "Shoo." And then I let the final nail in their coffin play. Clara's voice, breathless. "God, I wish I'd married you instead." Dead silence. And just like that, it was over. The weight of those last words settled over the room like a bomb had just gone off. I could feel it. The collective, stunned disbelief of everyone watching. Their heads snapping between Clara, Stephen, and me, trying to process the sheer magnitude of what they just heard. "God, I wish I'd married you instead." Clara's own words. echoing off the walls, branding themselves into the minds of everyone here. No excuses, no damage control, no way to spin it. She had just obliterated herself. A strangled noise came from her throat, something between a gasp and a sob. She turned to me, eyes wide with panic, her carefully curated mask of confidence shattered. "Ben," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please, can we talk about this? In private." I took my time finishing my drink before setting the glass down with a soft clink. Then I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in years I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no love. Just the cold, clinical satisfaction of a plan executed to perfection. "Private," I repeated, feigning confusion. "Why? Didn't you just say I wouldn't do anything? That I was just Ben?" Her face crumbled. She knew. She knew I was done. And Stephen? Oh, he was spiraling. His hands were clenched at his sides. His entire body coiled like he wanted to hit something. Or someone. Probably me. Too bad I had one more card to play. I turned to the crowd, scanning the faces. "By the way, I should probably mention." I pointed casually at Stephen, who was now sweating through his overpriced designer suit. He was supposed to get promoted next month. Someone in the back choked on their drink. Stephen's boss, an older man with sharp eyes, slowly turned toward him. "Was?" I smiled. "Oh yeah, was." Stephen stiffened. "Ben, don't." "See, funny story." I cut him off. "I happen to have another recording. Pretty interesting one. It's just Stephen here, mocking his clients, fudging some numbers, and laughing about how he's been milking the company for all it's worth. Great stuff. Real team player." The blood drained from his face so fast, I thought he might pass out. His boss stepped forward. "Is this true?" Stephen didn't answer. Couldn't. He was trapped. I pulled my phone back out, thumb hovering over the screen. "Wanna hear it?" he snapped. Stephen lunged, face twisted with rage. But before he could even touch me, two of his own co-workers grabbed him. And just like that, he was done too. Stephen thrashed against his co-worker's grip, his face an ugly shade of red. He wasn't used to losing control like this. The confident, smirking executive who had spent months walking around like he owned the world was now completely powerless. And the best part? I wasn't even done yet. Clara was still standing there, gripping the tiny box that had detonated her entire life. Her chest rose and fell in rapid, uneven breaths. She wasn't crying. Not yet. But I could see the dam breaking behind her wide, desperate eyes. She was in free fall and she knew it. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. Wow, I gotta say, this went better than I imagined. I turned my gaze back to Stephen's boss, who was now eyeing his employee like he was some kind of festering disease. "You want me to send you the file?" I offered. Should be helpful when HR asks for a reason to cut ties with their golden boy here. Stephen's jaw clenched so tight, I thought his teeth might shatter. His boss, however, looked intrigued. The corporate world was ruthless, and nothing got a man fired faster than making the company look bad. "Send it," the boss said simply. Stephen lost it. "Are you insane?" he snarled, trying again to yank free from the people holding him back. "You're gonna take his word over mine? Over years of loyalty?" His boss didn't even blink. "You just got exposed for screwing another man's wife on company time. Do you really think I'm betting my reputation on you?" Clara winced, finally realizing the weight of what she had done. This wasn't just a personal scandal anymore. She had destroyed his career. But I wasn't done with her either. I turned back to my loving wife, who was still frozen in place, too stunned to even breathe properly. "Clara," I said, my voice calm, almost pleasant. "You wanted to talk? Okay, let's talk." She nodded rapidly, like a drowning woman who had just been offered a lifeline. Yes, Ben, please. We can fix this. Let's go home and..." I laughed. Actually laughed. A real, genuine laugh. "Home," I echoed, shaking my head. "Oh no. No. You are not going home with me, sweetheart. In fact, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single key. Your stuff isn't even there anymore." Her face collapsed. Stephen, despite his own unraveling world, went rigid. "What?" he croaked. I let the silence stretch before I explained. "You see, I had some time to prepare for this, I said smoothly, slipping the key into my pocket again. And in that time I had a little, well, let's call it a moving party. Had some guys clear out every single thing Clara owned from my house. Clothes, shoes, makeup, work files. I gestured vaguely. You name it, it's gone. A sharp, horrified gasp left her lips. Ben, no. Tell me you didn't. Oh, but I did. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice so only she could hear. And guess where it all is now? She shook her head rapidly, stepping back. She already knew, but I told her anyway. At your mom's, I whispered. Her entire body flinched. Clara's mother was a nightmare. Controlling, judgmental, utterly ruthless. A woman who had never once approved of her daughter's choices, especially not when it came to men. And now she was about to get a front-row seat to Clara's fall from grace. No, Clara whimpered, shaking her head. Ben, please. I smiled. Already done, sweetheart. A strangled sob caught in her throat, but I wasn't finished. You remember our joint accounts? I asked, tilting my head. She stiffened. Oh, she knew what was coming. Yeah, those are mine now. I took a leisurely sip of my drink, savoring this moment. I went ahead and had my lawyer pull everything that was solely under my name and move it into my personal accounts. I mean, you were the one who wanted independence, right? I could hear her breathing fall apart. And then came the final blow. You might want to check your credit cards, too, I mused. I shut down the ones under my name. And, fun fact, your personal card? I raised a brow. Yeah, that was mostly being funded by me. I watched her reach for her purse, fumbling for her phone with shaking hands. She already knew the truth, but she needed to see it, needed to confirm the nightmare was real. A few seconds later, a broken, guttural sound slipped from her lips. She had nothing. No money, no home, no backup plan. And now, no Stephen. Because while she was crumbling, I turned back to her so-called lover, who was still locked in place, his entire career hanging by a thread. You really should have kept your mouth shut tonight, I said to him. That cocky little speech? The jokes? The condescending attitude? I smirked. That's what really made this fun for me. Stephen's face twisted into pure hatred. You! I cut him off with a wave of my hand. Anyway, I think we're done here. I glanced at Clara one last time. She was silent now, shaking, utterly destroyed. Good. With one final sip of my drink, I turned on my heel and walked away. And I didn't look back. The cold night air hit me the moment I stepped outside. Felt good, clean, crisp, freeing. Like the final exhale after holding my breath for too damn long. Behind me, the party was unraveling into chaos. I could hear the murmurs, the gasps, the frantic whispering of people processing what they just witnessed. Clara and Stephen were ruined. And me? I was finally done. But not before tying up a few loose ends. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and, with a few taps, sent the recording straight to Stephen's boss. Just for good measure, I attached the additional fun clips, the ones where Stephen bragged about skimming off company funds and treating clients like idiots. It didn't take long for a response. Received. We'll handle it. Short. Clinical. Lethal. Stephen's career? Dead on arrival. A slow smile spread across my face. I leaned against my car, taking my time, enjoying the quiet destruction I had just unleashed. Then, as expected, my phone started buzzing. Clara. I let it ring, then ring again, and again. Finally, I answered. You sound out of breath, I said lazily. Busy running damage control? Ben, please, she gasped. You can't just throw me out like this. We need to talk. We need to fix this. I let out a low chuckle. Oh, babe, you still don't get it, do you? Silence. You spent months treating me like a fool. I continued, my voice sharp now. Like some disposable idiot who'd never see through you. You laughed at me, mocked me, built your entire little affair around the idea that I was too weak to do anything about it. That's not, she started, but I cut her off. And now? Now you want to talk? Now, when you have nothing left? A choked sob broke through the line. Good. You don't understand, she pleaded. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking. I sighed, shaking my head. Oh, you were thinking, Clara. You were thinking just fine. You thought about it every time you walked into a hotel with him. Every time you made a joke at my expense. Every time you looked me in the eye and lied. Her breath hitched. I meant what I said. I told her, my tone final. You have nothing to come back to. You lost me. You lost the house. You lost the comfortable little life you thought you could keep while screwing someone else. Ben, please, she whispered. I love you. I laughed. Actually laughed. You don't love me, I said. You loved what I gave you. More silence. She knew I was right. I exhaled slowly. Anyway, I think this is where we say goodbye. Wait. Click. I ended the call. And just like that, Clara was gone. I slid my phone back into my pocket and glanced up at the sky. The night was so still, so perfect, so damn peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt free. And God, it felt good. I stood there for a while, letting the weight of it all settle. Not a heavy, crushing weight, a satisfying one. The kind you feel after finishing something monumental. Like stepping back from a masterpiece and realizing every stroke, every detail was perfect. The house? Gone. The money? Locked away. The affair? Exposed. I had spent months playing the fool, watching, waiting, setting up every piece on the board. And tonight? Checkmate. But I wasn't completely done. My phone buzzed again. Not Clara this time. She wouldn't dare, not after that last call. This was someone else. Unknown number. I smirked. Stephen. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Evening, Stephen. There was no cockiness left in his voice now. No bravado. Just pure, seething desperation. You think you won, huh? His voice was tight, furious, shaking. You think you can just humiliate me like that and walk away? I leaned against my car, relaxed. Stephen, buddy, you humiliated yourself. I just gave the world a front row seat. A sharp breath from his end. Oh, he hated that. You don't know who you're messing with, he spat. I have connections. You think I can't bounce back from this? I almost felt bad for him. Almost. You're delusional, I said, amused. By tomorrow, your company will have your resignation on their desk. Whether you write it yourself or they draft it for you. HR loves a scandal, Stephen. Especially one with audio proof. Silence. He knew I was right. You son of a... Careful, I warned, voice dangerously soft. You're on thin ice already. You really want to add threats to the list of reasons you're about to lose everything. A pause. Then, what do you want? There it is. The moment he finally accepted I had won. I let the silence stretch before answering. Nothing, I said simply. I already took what I wanted. And I hung up, because there was nothing left for him to say. By the time I got home, the movers had already finished. My house, my home was finally mine again. No trace of Clara. No lingering reminders of the woman who had spent months disrespecting me under my own roof. I stepped inside, tossing my keys onto the counter, feeling the emptiness around me in the best way possible. Quiet, clean, mine. I poured myself another drink, walking through the house slowly, letting it all sink in. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclamation. Clara thought she could cheat and still keep her perfect life. Stephen thought he could take something from me and get away with it. They were both wrong. Because tonight, I didn't just expose them. I erased them. The next morning, I woke up to peace. No Clara rushing around, complaining about work. No forced smiles over breakfast. No lingering smell of someone else's cologne in my house. Just silence. Perfect, satisfying silence. I stretched, got out of bed, and took my time making coffee. There was no urgency, no weight pressing down on me. It was the first morning in months that I didn't feel like I was bracing for another gut punch. But as I sat down at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone, I saw exactly what I had been waiting for. The fallout had begun. First, the company group chat was on fire. Apparently, Stephen didn't even make it into the office. Security met him at the entrance and escorted him out before he could beg for a meeting with the higher-ups. His emails were already disabled, his desk cleared out, his reputation torched beyond repair. People were sending memes, screenshots, even links to articles popping up on industry sites. Apparently, my little audio file had done more than just get him fired. It was spreading. A reporter had gotten hold of the story. An anonymous tip, not from me, of course, wink, And now Steven's name was out there in the worst way possible. The man who had been next in line for a major promotion was now trending on social media for all the wrong reasons. Corporate executive exposed for workplace affair and fraud allegations. Ouch. The comments were brutal. Some were from former employees who, apparently, had been waiting for the chance to drag him. Others were from random people who just loved a juicy scandal. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But then I thought about all those times he looked me in the eye and laughed behind my back. So, I poured another cup of coffee and enjoyed the show. Then came Clara. I hadn't blocked her number, not yet. I wanted to see how long it would take before she fully broke down. And judging by the flood of missed calls and messages, it didn't take long at all. Clara, 6:42 a.m. Ben. Please. Clara, 7:15 a.m. I know you hate me, but we need to talk. Clara, 7:50 a.m. My mom won't let me stay here. She's furious. Clara, 8:10 a.m. Please. Ben. I have nowhere to go. I chuckled, shaking my head. She really thought I cared. Her mother had been a wild card in all this. I didn't even have to lift a finger. She did the damage for me. I had only given her the basic details when I dropped off Clara's things. But that was enough. A controlling, hypercritical woman like her? She wouldn't take this lightly. I could already imagine the scene. Clara trying to explain herself. Her mother, seething. The shame, the disappointment, the endless reminders of how she had ruined her life. A fate worse than anything I could have planned. I took another sip of coffee and sent my only response of the morning. Me? 8:32 a.m., not my problem. Then I blocked her. Because she wasn't my wife anymore. She was just another mistake I had erased. The moment I hit block, a strange feeling settled over me. Something between relief and exhilaration. Clara was gone. Steven was ruined. And me? I was free. I leaned back in my chair, stretching, letting the satisfaction settle into my bones. But there was one more thing to take care of. I grabbed my laptop, cracked my knuckles, and pulled up Clara's social media. I expected a mess. And oh man, did she deliver. Her latest post, still public, because she had always loved attention, was a long, desperate essay about redemption and forgiveness. Clara, people make mistakes, but mistakes don't define us. What defines us is how we choose to move forward. I know I've hurt someone I love, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it. Love is about forgiveness, about second chances, blah, blah, blah. The comment section was glorious. Her friends, Clara, WTF? Her coworkers, wait, is this about the party last night? Some guy I didn't even know, damn girl, you got exposed in 4K. I snorted. Even people who didn't know me were tearing her apart. Good. But the real highlight, Steven's girlfriend had found the post. Yeah. His girlfriend. Because, of course, Steven had never told Clara he was actually engaged. And now she knew. Her comment was sitting right there, pinned at the top for everyone to see. Sarah. Oh, so this is why you worked late every night, Steven? Thanks for saving me a lifetime of regret. Clara. Hope it was worth it. I actually let out a low whistle. Damn. Steven's entire life was going up in flames, and I didn't even have to throw the last match. Sarah was handling that just fine. I scrolled down a little more and caught something else. Clara had changed her relationship status. From married to Ben, to it's complicated. I laughed so hard I had to put my coffee down. Complicated? Oh no, sweetheart. It's over. But that wasn't the best part. Oh no. That came when I saw what Steven had done. He blocked her. I leaned back, rubbing my jaw. That idiot really thought she was going to be his backup plan. And now, he had lost everything. His job, his fiancée, his reputation. And Clara? She had lost her home, her marriage, and the only person who might have still been dumb enough to take her in. I exhaled slowly, setting my laptop aside. That was it. The last loose end tied. And for the first time in a long time, I was done. The days that followed were strangely quiet, peaceful even, the kind of silence that comes after a storm, when the wreckage has settled, and all that's left to do is admire the destruction. I kept to myself, went to work, lived my life, and every now and then, I'd hear fragments of the aftermath. Apparently, Clara had tried everything to clean up the mess. Damage control, fake apologies, even a pathetic attempt to twist the story, claiming that she and Stephen had been on a break when it all started. Nobody bought it. Her friends? Gone. Her co-workers? Disgusted. Her family? Ashamed. Last I heard, she was crashing at some distant cousin's place, because even her own mother had slammed the door in her face. Stephen? Even worse. He tried to save face, posting some self-pitying nonsense about how he was the real victim, about how some men can't handle being outshined. It backfired. Spectacularly. The comments under his post were merciless. Outshined? Bro, you got publicly executed. Didn't you cheat on your FINC? Sit this one out, champ. Man went from executive to unemployed overnight. Love to see it. By the end of the week, he deleted everything. I imagine he's spending his days job hunting and dodging reporters. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. And me? I was finally free. I went out with friends, hit the gym more often, even took a weekend trip, something I hadn't done in years because I had been too busy keeping someone else's life together. I wasn't Ben the fool anymore. I was just Ben. One night, I got a text from an unknown number. I already knew who it was before I even opened it. Clara, I know you hate me, but I just want to know if you're happy. I stared at the message for a moment, thought about everything she had put me through. Then I smiled, and I didn't reply. Instead, I shut off my phone, poured myself a drink, and sat back, enjoying the quiet. Because for the first time in a long time, I actually was